Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order.
Yep.
Pledge allegiance to the
The flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right,
No.
so first
The
item on the agenda is
letter.
a letter to...
Can I make a suggestion?
Yep.
That we just take that out of order right now in case Mr. Souza joins us?
Okay,
I mean, we don't have to wait too long. but I-
okay, all right,
Because he wrote it.
okay, all right, we'll, hopefully, Mr. Souza will come in and we'll discuss it. So Terry's not here, but Bill and I attended a meeting of the subcommittee meeting for the schools with Jim Kiley, superintendent. The subcommittee is Christopher Oliver and
Dr. McGuire.
Shannon Jenkins.
Shannon Jenkins.
Yeah.
And, you know, we kind of went through a bunch of issues back and forth, discussing, you know, my big thing was school choice and the cost of school choice and bringing in students from the outside. They made, you know, they obviously are making the case for an override for the school, and we did, Bill talked about, I don't know if he wants anything about
Yes.
about the transportation bill, brought the subject up, and, you know, I assume that the transportation costs would be high for Dartmouth because of the size of the town, but Jim Kiley said, no, our costs are very reasonable compared to other school districts.
And they're renegotiating the contract, I think.
Yeah, they are renegotiating a contract
They are.
for the future.
I was questioning efficiencies, if possibly we could do a better job with, say, central drop-offs and pickups and like that. I think there's room for improvement there. I just don't like the fact that some buses only have 4 or 5 kids, you know, when they get dropped off at school, and they get picked up with 4 or 5 kids, and the superintendent took exception to that. He said, well, who says we only have 4 or 5 kids? I said, all you have to do is park your car outside of school and see how many are on a school bus when it leaves. It's very disturbing to me. It's been that way for years, and some people in the town who don't have any kids in the school take exception to that. It's their tax money. It's what's being paid for. So I think we can improve. I hope we can work as a team to find a way to at least make it more efficient. I realize they're up against it with, as far as bidding contracts out, there's only so many bus companies that will put in a bid, so I know we have to work carefully, but still, I think there's room for improvement, and that's my, you know, pet peeve, if you will, is transportation.
If I may.
Go ahead.
I think the issue with the buses is the children are only allowed to ride so long. So you can't control like how many buses there are because they can only sit on the bus for so long.
True.
So
Is
it's
it
the
an
way
hour?
the districts,
Well-
yeah, I don't remember the time honestly, but it's the way the districts in town are set up. So we
Yeah.
have no say, honestly.
And that might be in some cases, Janine, depending on where they're picked up, in the outskirts or out of parameter of the town, but, you know, I see school buses around where I live on Langevin Street with only 4 or 5 kids in it, so.
Well, I'm not suggesting that you're wrong. I don't think they're overburdened, not that I watch them, but.
you know. I just think that anything can become more efficient, in my opinion, so I think that's something that should be looked into.
From what I remember, being on the school committee, you have to, at the beginning of the school year, you have a certain number of children per bus,
But,
and you have to allocate a certain number of buses to cover that many children.
That's a mandate.
Whether or not the children take the bus doesn't matter, because if they don't take the bus today, they can take the bus tomorrow.
No,
The
and
bus will always be there. So,
Mhm.
if you've got, say at the high school, you've got a season where you've got 3 or 4 or 5 sports going at once. You may see a bus with only 5 kids in it because everybody's still at the school playing sports.
if that was a high school, yes.
Yeah,
The grammar school and the middle school,
Right.
no,
no, I understand that.
no. And you're right, I was on school committee too, and that was an issue back, 30 years
Oh,
ago.
of course, it's always
It's
a,
always an issue. And you're right, it's a state mandate, you have to provide a seat for every,
transportation.
that is correct.
Outside of 1 mile from
Right.
the.
And that, we had a discussion, Phil, before, I think, got on the finance committee, we were trying to appeal to our state legislators, namely Chris Markey and Montigny, if they could possibly do something at a state level. Now, that's probably going nowhere, but it isn't just our community, there's other communities that are stuck
It's all the
with
communities.
the same problem. So, to me, that's not right, it's something, it should be looked into, it's just not a healthy financial situation.
Did the school committee suggest that they were going to look into it?
Actually, they did. As a matter of fact, Mr. Kiley suggested that they could look at it and maybe see where they could become more efficient or at least more cost-sensitive, and I applauded that, and let's hope we can work together, maybe you can find a solution.
The big question was, what do you mean by restoring level service? And that basically came back to just maintaining the status quo. There's no new programs. There's no, they just want to, maintain the programs that they have. And I don't know if you want to say anything on that, Bill, because it's kind of a, Brian kept on talking about restoring level services, and how do you explain that to the town meeting and the taxpayers about restoring level service? But to me, what they were saying is they just want to maintain the no new programs, but just maintain the student to teacher ratio. And okay.
It was how they presented it at the joint meeting. The words were used, restore level service, as if we had slipped
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah.
That's why I'm sure that Brian asked that question, because it sounded like all of a sudden we weren't there anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Dr. Jenkins tried to clarify that, what was meant by that, and she was more or less saying that they didn't want to have any reductions in staff, But it really didn't answer the question about what they meant by restoring, level of service, because,
Yeah.
right, it was implied or even inferred that, we weren't at level of,
That's right, yeah, right.
and again, it wasn't answered.
Yeah.
to-
Just a little
Words
insight-
matter,
just a-
words matter.
Yeah, just a little insight on, the long-term capital planning committee has been meeting, and that was a topic of discussion at our last meeting where we talked about what does the definition of restorative mean? Does it mean bringing it back to baseline? Does it mean bringing it above baseline, adding new projects, adding new programs on?
Right.
So that's something I think that they're still
It was-
looking at.
it was
It's still-
vague. It's
Yeah,
right
it still
there.
needs to be
Vague.
defined on what a
Yes.
restorative
Absolutely.
budget is, so that we're still working on that definition.
But one of the things that was made clear to us was that the success of students, the most important factor for successful outcomes for students is the teacher to student ratio. And so when we get to the analysis I did, I'm gonna bring that fact up again. And then another thing we spoke about was it was kind of implied that they would like us to support this whole override item, and I had said in the meeting that I didn't think we could as being a finance committee. I mean, when it's on the warrant, we have to vote on it, if it's gonna be on the warrant. But we can't, in my discussion with Gary, we can't actively be involved in promoting it because we're technically part of the town government as being on the finance committee. And we can support it personally, or family members can do whatever they want, but we can't organize meetings or do, is that?
Yeah, that's correct. So we have to be more factual and informative of the facts. I mean, if they're looking for numbers, if they're looking for trends, we can supply that, but we can't say one way or another if we're in support of it or not support. And again, the Long-Term Capital Planning Committee knows that's something that they can't do. We can provide the information to any outside group that might want to do it. If you look at other communities, like Melrose was one of the examples. They had a group called One Melrose, and they're the ones that developed all the campaign for the override and this and that. But that's nothing that was not involved with any board or committee member.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But we would have to vote on it, right? It would be on the warrant.
Well,
And-
I think on Monday, what'll happen is, Sean will revamp the presentation that he's made. There's a couple of tweaks that need to be done. And then, the committees, or the board will decide, where we want to go from there. Do we want an override? Do we want cuts, a combination? I think that's what needs to be
Well, Kylie-
determined on Monday.
If I may, Judge, Mr. Kiley was going to put together a presentation, and he was gonna more or less try to outline where their 4% increase was justified with bullet points. So I'm curious to see what he comes up with, and then
For
hopefully.
Monday's meeting?
That's what he said. That's right, Bob?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what he said. So I'm waiting to see what that is, and then I think once we hear that, maybe we can go forward and plan what steps should be taken, in support of, if he can justify it, he probably will, but then we have to see what to do. I mean, as far as overrides go, it's just gonna lead to more overrides, because as I mentioned at the meeting, their costs aren't gonna go down.
Yeah.
The labor contracts are still gonna be going up. They still feel they're not being paid with respect to other communities. So you only know they're gonna ask for more money, which is gonna be, of course, asking for an increase in the school budget, so.
Yeah, we would hope that an override now would get us to the point where, or get the town to the point where it's sustainable, for at least the next few years. So we've asked Jim, and he's been very cooperative, what do you actually need in the what do you need to get us to that point?
Right, so that would probably expire about the same time your union contracts.
Yeah, I
Probably.
believe school's up next year.
Well, that's what I mean. It's just troubling, it really is, just.
But I guess the point I want to make is we can't be involved in it. Now, in the question, and I called David Tattelbaum, I want to make sure we're clear on this. On Monday, well, we can't vote today, but on Monday, are they expecting us to
Recommend.
vote to support it? Because it's not, we don't have to do that, right? Because it's not on a warrant. I mean, by law, we have to vote anything on the warrant, but we don't have to vote to support or not support on Monday.
Well, not necessarily. I think on Monday what'll happen is, the board may make a decision to go with an override, and then we now get into the calendar of the override. You could also meet at the next meeting and discuss the override and whether or not the committee supports the override, because there's gonna be some data that you'll need to do all that. So that would be the recommendation. If they vote on Monday to move forward with an override, the committee then would meet potentially the next meeting, we have one scheduled, to discuss the override.
But the select board alone decides whether
To
to
put yes.
put the override in.
Yes.
So that's the thing. And so Monday, we have.
I mean, they may ask for guidance from the finance committee.
Yeah,
You know, they may-
so Monday, we may have, we may be asked, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to kind of get together.
Because remember, the presentation, Sean gave the presentation a week or so ago, 2 weeks
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
And that'll be tweaked, and then we'll hear from Jim, from the schools.
Right.
And at that point, I think that may be enough information at that point for the board to say, we support an override, And
Well-
then, you know, if they want guidance from the finance committee, we'd have to give them the guidance, either that meeting or the next meeting, on whether or not you support it.
Well,
right?
we would want to give it to them the day that they're making a
You
vote
could,
on
yeah,
it,
you
right?
could, you could do that
So,
on Monday.
So I don't know how everybody else feels, but how do I put this?
You wouldn't need to take a vote now to do that, you'd have,
We can't
No,
anyway.
we
Right,
can't.
they don't have
No, we
no,
wouldn't do anything until after the
No.
meeting.
right,
The problem I'm having here, folks, is there's a certain timetable. You have to be able to put that on the ballot, correct? The override's gotta, right,
right, so what they're aiming for is, because there's an election in April,
yeah.
they're aiming to have all this done prior to the April election, so that we're not having to spend additional monies to go out and have a separate election, which costs $40,000-$50,000.
Right, so how much time are we gonna be able to deliberate? And, you know.
We'll have probably a good month before the February date that they need to put out the information to the public and whatnot. So it will be tight, but we will only be dealing with the school budget at that time. So remember last meeting, I wanted to have us have a calendar so we have the
Right.
regular departments
Yeah,
go out with, you know, we're gonna, my impression is on the 9th, we send out the budget memo, and we have the departments work on their.
January 9th.
January. We work on they work on their budget simultaneously. Capital, I'm gonna be meeting with them in a couple of weeks. We're gonna have that, a couple of meetings. So we can't wait for the schools to start generating the regular budget. We will have to do this like almost in parallel. So you know, the schools will be the focus, and until we get up to the point where everybody's had enough information from them.
Go ahead.
Doesn't town meeting have to vote prior
To
to
the-
it going? So
to the
a
to the
special
ballot.
town meeting has to be held?
Yes.
And then, before April?
that's right.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Right.
So it is a very tight schedule for the schools,
Mhm.
to get all this information together, and also for the committees.
So the town meeting would be just for the override?
Yes,
Just for the override?
Just for the override,
Wouldn't be for the
nothing else.
budget, okay.
right. Then we would continue with our normal June town meeting for the addition. So we would be meeting simultaneously with other departments if needed.
Okay, so, that said, we clearly don't have enough information to
No.
have a feeling.
No.
for-
No, I think
for-
I
for
have
override.
lots of questions, and I can't
Absolutely.
even imagine they'll be answered by Monday.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jim, you know, but.
So I think at the select board meeting, each one of our members, if they want to say anything, has the opportunity to say anything.
Absolutely.
And ask questions, and, yeah,
Yeah, and that's why I think it should be
roundtable.
around, you,
Right, yeah.
for that meeting. But, you know, based on the meeting we had with the subcommittee and questions that I've asked Jim Kiley, who's been very, very cooperative in providing me with information, I did some analysis on school choice. And I wish Terry was here, because we kind of differ, have a different opinion on this. So this is what I'd like to present to the select board on Monday. And that is school choice. The number of school choice students in high school is 132. The number of students in the high school is 956. So
It's down.
13.8% are school choice students, which means they come from another town. Now, the state reimburses us, pays us $5,000 per school choice student revenue. So if you do the math, 5,000 times 132, that's $660,000.
Mhm.
One of the, what are you doing to me there? One of the things I suggested at the subcommittee, was that they use that $660,000 to offset their budget, their expenses.
Mhm.
And I spoke with Donna Fernandez, and she's looking into it, but she's pretty sure that can happen, that they can use, that's 600, if they decide on school choice, they have to decide to use the $660,000 to offset everyday expenses. Last year, I think they probably used about 70,000 of that, and they took the rest of it and put it in cash. So, so that's my first, suggestion. So when you look at the total expenditures per pupil, and I got this number from Jim's budget, which he posted online, by the way. And I sent everybody a link. The total expenditures per pupil is 17,300.
Okay.
Okay? Now, 30, can you go down a little bit more? What is to me, 13, well, the school committee feels that is empty seats, 13.8%. My feeling is, that's not empty seats. Not, 1% might be empty seats, 2% might be empty seats, but not 13.8%. 132 students. So, so the next question is, all right, so 5,000, if you do the math, it's $5,000 per student equals 32%. I got to check that number because I changed the thing, but it's about 30%.
Oh, what, the entire budget? What?
In other words, yeah, in other words, $5,000 only covers 30% of the per student expenditures. So that said, what is variable costs, okay? And if variable costs, I feel, because, you don't have to pay for another principal, you don't have to pay for, heat, insurance, I mean, so what is the variable cost of having these 132 students in our schools? And I think 50% is a reasonable number. I don't think $5,000 per student covers it. $5,000 per student, it's been $5,000 per student for 20 years. Hasn't changed. So just based on inflation, that number's not covering the cost.
Isn't that a state mandate?
It is a state mandate.
Okay.
The state law says 5,000 per student.
All right, that's what I'm saying, so we
Okay,
can't
so,
control
well,
the number.
Yeah, you can't control the number. But the bottom line is, our variable cost for those students is $8,650 per student. So if you take the cost, in my opinion, it's 50%. It can be calculated, but it's got to be done by an outside source, because the internal people in the school department are too close to it. So I think a reasonable number is 50%.
Okay.
So if the cost is $8,650, then the total cost for these 132 students is $1,141,000. Okay?
Total cost.
So total cost for the 132 students. So and this is where it gets to, I come down with the number of not applying the school choice revenue. By not applying the school choice revenue against those expenses, offsetting the expenses, it takes away from the general government $1,801,000. And how I get that number is the $1,141,768 plus the $660,000
Right.
that they get for school choice. So that $1,801,000 comes from the general government. So the general government, that's taking money away from the general government by using that number, okay? And what also doesn't factor into this is, okay, if you have school choice for a long period of time, you have all these additional staff members for out-of-town students. Well, guess what? When these employees retire, they're gonna get a pension benefit, they're gonna get a medical per employee, and they get medical for their spouse. So those are all additional costs for the future that relate to the school choice program. Now, does anybody have any questions on that?
Actually, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I think it's very fascinating, Bob, and thank you for putting this together, but I just, there's so many ways to look at this, especially variable costs. We have fixed costs. The fixed cost would be, you have a teacher, as you pointed out, you have a principal, electrical would be the same, you know, the fuel costs and everything. That was your fixed cost.
Yep.
The only additional cost would be your textbooks, in addition, if necessary, unless we don't have any on, you know, on hand, then we have to buy. I'm just trying to get my arms around the variable cost, what that would
Yeah.
be, to see if that number's correct. I also, you know, when you say 132 in the high school, okay, so over the 4 grades, all right, as 30 additional kids, we'll say.
33.
33 additional kids. All right. And then you put that per classroom. Again, you're talking about assistants. Would they necessarily need an assistant for those extra students? That's something that would have to be calculated. So
Yeah.
again, I'm glad you did this. I think this really opens up all kinds of questions and all kinds of explorations where you could expand on this to see really what the return on investment is, if you're part of a business acumen for it. Yeah, I question really get back to me if inefficiencies, is this efficient, and the cost is
Well, it's
crazy.
definitely,
It's crazy.
the student to teacher ratio. And I'll let Janine ask a question before because I want to end this with two different scenarios. Go ahead.
Okay. I follow what you did here. Yes, thank you, a lot of detail. I guess I'm having a hard time understanding how they managed to accrue from school choice funds $2,368,313.
2 million what?
$2,368,313
So the next
and
page.
26 cents.
By not spending money on specific programs.
Well,
They don't
okay,
spend
but
the
that's sitting in their bank right now.
That's right.
Right,
Right.
which could be applied,
Which is, actually, today is 2,600,000.
Should be applied.
applied to this.
Well, that's right from their budget
Yeah.
as of June 30th.
Yeah.
So,
And the only thing in this budget where they say they are actually going to spend it on future expenses is it was $350,000.
Yeah.
That's all they were planning on spending out of that.
Yeah, but are they able to spend the school choice money on something besides the
Yes.
school choice program?
Yes.
I talked to Donna Fernandez. She said she's 99.9% sure, but she's gonna get the state law for me.
I've
She
heard them
said-
talk in the school meetings about spending it on different things.
Yeah,
And-
unlike a grant, that's grant specific, they cannot, but the school
Correct.
choice is.
So
School
that's a
choice
lot
thing
of
is-
money
Yeah.
that
So-
doesn't seem to be spent. And just because I
Yeah.
want to just offer one other thought about money, I did scan their 100-page budget. I didn't see any reference to the kindergarten stabilization fund. What's happening with that?
oh yeah, that's out there too, that's right, Janine.
Well, if you're, on one of the meetings, I think it was one of the meetings, we talked about capital with the select board. I believe, and don't quote me with the number, but I believe they had 300 and some odd thousand in that account, and they were looking to spend, or looking to allocate 200,000 in the budget. Now, I'm not sure if that was done for the FY '25 budget, or
In the
if it was done
capital
FY
budget, is that what you're saying? Because
Yes.
it's not, I don't see it anywhere in here being referred to.
Yeah, I think that was a recommendation that they had made, school committee, to use that. We can follow up with Jim on that.
Because what does it take for that to be dissolved,
To be,
the stabilization fund to be?
I
Because
believe
that was
town-
an issue last summer,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that we couldn't touch it, because there was some kind of process that had to be done.
Well, town meeting sets up the stabilization fund, so I believe town meeting would have the authority to drain it, not, well,
So is the school
eliminate it.
committee doing something at this point to make sure that that fund is now dissolved to be spent?
well, it had to be on the warrant, right?
I'm
yeah, yeah.
asking if they've done anything.
Yeah, I don't think that they have.
Well, they can't because the warrant's not.
Yeah, and I think there's still a balance in that account, so we could check with them.
But they said they were willing to use it.
The entire amount,
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
they said they did, yeah.
we can follow up with them, with Jim.
All right.
So Gary, question, they're asking 4%, and it's $2 million we're proposing that they have out there. If they applied that to their budget, would that lower them to what, 3.5? What would that do as far as an impact to their increase if they chose to use that money that was out there, that $2 million?
As far as what they're presenting for the FY '25
Yeah,
budget?
yeah.
So, you know, we're still tweaking these numbers for the Monday
Yeah.
presentation, because Jim
Right.
gave us the,
Yeah,
so the level service budget was 54.4 million, that's what they
Okay.
talked about. Then they made some proposed changes, $80,000 for ESL teacher,
Yeah.
$80,000 for behavioral specialist,
Yeah.
and then a transition program, which was 25,000. So the proposed budget would be 54,668,501.10 cents. That would be their proposed budget. Now, anything, obviously, that they use to offset that would bring down the amount, and that reflects,
Yeah.
according to what Jim's the latest, a 6% increase. So we, if anything that would bring that, if they're using any other allocations, now remember, if they're using the kindergarten, that's a one-time revenue source, so.
Yeah,
Alright.
well, that's, yeah,
That's fine, that can be applied to this year's budget, that's fine. If we don't see
It
it,
would have to be applied to probably a capital item or something like that, something that's not reoccurring,
okay.
you know, so. Yeah,
but I
But
mean,
I'm just looking at the school choice that, they have all this,
yeah.
outstanding money out there that could be used to drop their budget request.
I'd have to go back to the meetings. I'm not sure if they made if the committee made a recommendation, the school committee made a recommendation to use any of that money in the FY '25 budget. I'd have to go back and look.
Technology and something
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
There was two things. I forget what the other one was.
but that's, yeah, that's, Phil, do you have any questions before I, because I want to say this, okay. So now, it was made perfectly clear to us that the teacher-to-student ratio is the biggest factor in the success of students. So if you have school choice, and those are empty seats, you can make that argument, then you're adding 132 students, that deteriorates the education of our Dartmouth students. Does that make sense? In other
Say that
words,
again?
in other words, if the student-to-teacher ratio is the single most important factor in the future success of students,
Yeah.
then by adding, I'm offsetting, adding 132 students for empty seats deteriorates the teacher-to-student ratio, which means that that deteriorates the education of the Dartmouth students.
You saying by adding the 132?
Kind of confused with the
Okay.
empty seats.
Well,
Well, their argument is that
The school committee.
the school committee's argument is, all they're doing is filling empty seats. So,
Okay.
so they're saying, okay, they're empty seats, they would be empty if we didn't fill them. And we get the $660,000 for it. And my argument, the other side of that argument is they're adding 132 students so that they keep their level of full-time equivalence the same. That's the other side, right? I mean, that's the balance, right?
Okay.
Okay,
I
okay.
All
All
understand.
right, so if the teacher-to-student relationship is so important, and they're saying they're empty seats, by adding 130, by adding 132 students, or an additional 13.8% students to the thing, that deteriorates the teacher-to-student.
It inflates the ratio, yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
inflates the
That's
ratio.
right.
So by inflating the ratio, that means that that's deteriorating the education of the Dartmouth students, just the Dartmouth
But
students.
that's spread over how many, 4 grades and how many classrooms? I mean, you don't know where these, you may or may not, depending on the classes.
But you've only got 956 students in the school.
Right.
When I was on the school committee 15 years ago, there were 1,200.
That's right. Yes, he's absolutely,
So
it's gone down.
you've got a lot of open capacity there.
Mhm.
Because-
Well, physically-
Because we had briefly discussed merging with Westport years ago, when Westport was having the problems with their high school.
Mhm,
And we figured out that, yeah, we could probably fit everybody in there.
mhm.
It-
Physically.
Nothing ever came of it, of course.
Physically,
Yeah.
right, the classrooms.
Yeah.
But the teachers,
Right,
the student relationship changes. So if that student, if the student, by adding 132,
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
The ratio's going up,
right,
and it makes it look like we need more teachers. Or we need, it's more important that we keep what we have.
yes, that's just the argument the school committee's making. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Judy.
So if the ratio in Dartmouth, and I just looked it up, and please tell me if you have a different number, is 12 and a half, right?
Yeah.
And the state ratio in Massachusetts
That's
is
way down.
13.6. Please tell me what that difference, that one makes
That's my point.
in the education of the
Yes.
student. I guess I need to
And I
understand
agree.
what that difference of
Yes.
one makes.
That's my question.
12 and a half. Dartmouth currently is 12 and a half.
12 and a half to
That's
one.
what it says, and please.
I believe it.
And then looking it up quickly, the student-teacher ratio in Massachusetts in general is 13.6.
Right. And you take that number, geez.
So I'm just trying to understand what that impact is. I can't
Either
wrap
can I.
myself around that.
Because if you divide, again, you take the grades, you divide that, say 30, 31, 32, whatever, and then you spread that over the classes that your kids would be in, right, it's minuscule. That's not impactful at all.
Well, it's 13.8%.
If you look at it collectively, Bobby, if you look at it compartmentalized
Yeah.
per class, it's not.
I understand your argument, I do. Well, I'm not discrediting that, and that absolutely would affect the ratio. I'm going after the general argument that somehow our education system is doing poorly, and we seem to be one student off
Yeah.
from the state average.
There you go.
I realize they can,
Well,
and they do, frankly, cherry pick the list they compare to.
Yeah.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
You know, believe me, I analyzed that list to death that was
You
presented.
pick the ones that make your argument.
So what is the, what is the, let me get my Excel up here.
That's why I'm having a hard
Yeah,
time
I
with the
do. I
justifications
agree
that I've
with you.
seen so far.
Yeah, I agree with you.
The,
Right there.
so what are you saying, that 13?
It says, right, it's 13.6 students per teacher as the ratio
13.6.
in Massachusetts,
Well, I don't
which
care
is
about
well
Massachusetts.
below the national average of
This is
15.5 students
Yeah,
per
more than
teacher.
I don't really care about Massachusetts, I only care about Dartmouth students.
I
So
got
what's the-
that, I
what's the
just
Dartmouth?
told you,
What's the Dartmouth?
12 and a half.
All right, 12.5,
No,
right?
but that's how they present it to us, Bob.
Mhm.
That's how they pronounce it.
No, that's right.
How they present
That's
it.
why I
how-
said,
That's how they
That's-
present an override to the town.
That's how they
Right.
present their argument. They compare it to other
So-
communities.
because X-Town, pick one, I don't care what it is, has, their ratio is 7 students per teacher. So
Right.
our education system must be awful
they're probably 12th in per pupil spending, or something like that, and we're 325th.
Well, the list, that's a whole other argument I could get into. That I went by that town list one by one. Actually, I'm not sure it was the school committee's argument. It might have been our town administrator's argument for raising taxes. But either way, it was a list of towns that, you know, they were just much higher per capita income than our towns.
That's right.
They listed 15 towns and their per capita incomes. I went through and analyzed them, and we were number 14 out of that list. So everybody else was a far wealthier town.
Right.
In
and-
general.
And if you remember, Janine, I brought that up at the joint meeting.
You did bring it up, Bill. That's why I looked and went down the whole list
I
and
knew I
made a
could
chart.
count on you, Janine, thank you.
Because I looked at that list, and you know, any of us that have lived in Massachusetts can look at that list and go,
All right,
those are wealthier towns than Dartmouth.
okay. So, if we don't change the number, if we don't change the number of teachers, and we don't have the 132 students,
Got to,
what's that?
you have to. If you're gonna get rid of the 132 people, you have to get rid of the people who are teaching them too.
That's, yes, but all I'm saying is, if their argument is these are empty seats, and that they're not gonna change the number of teachers they have for this, then the student ratio goes from 12.5
Goes down to 10.
to 10.8. So so now, the student ratio goes to 10.8, which far exceeds the state, right? But then, if the statement is student to ratio is the most important, then you're deteriorating the students from the education of the Dartmouth students. That's my argument. Now, that said, there is going to be, you know, we would propose that they you know, have less staff, whether it's students or whatever, you know, let's put it this way, if school choice is 13.8% and the fixed cost, the variable cost is 50%, then that would mean that half the 13.8%, so it would be, you know, 7.6% reduction in staff. You know, and that would reduce the budget. That would reduce the budget. Which leads me to my next thing. You can't just throw out all these students because they're here.
Yeah.
It would be very unfair to say to these kids, hey, you know, you've been here for 2 years, get out, right?
See you.
So what I'm looking at is a variable cost per student, $13,650, that they phase it out by next year, not taking any freshmen. And they phase it out over 4 years. And that's $450,000 against the budget every year. So that fiscal budget, 2025 budget, you would reduce your staffing by $450,000. And then the second year, you do another $450,000. Is there anything underneath that? Okay, that's it. I just put that up there because it's not, you can't just cut the budget. But what you can do is, there's a big if you take all the money, if you reduce the staff by, and you could do it by attrition too, you know, 7.6%, then you will apply to take your money that you get for the $5,000 per student and offset it against the budget, then, you know, we're starting to talk real money now, you know, because we're what, 2.5 million difference?
I believe it's around 2.5.
2.5 million, right? So this gets you, the 450 gets you to, the 450 would be staff reduction, whether it be teachers or cafeteria or whatever. And then you would apply, you know, the $5,000 per student for, against the budget, so that would be, so it would go down to 100, so that'd be, in other words, if you reduce 33 students, that'd go down to 99, so that you would get basically $500,000 in, to offset expenses. So the reduction in staff would be 450, using the cash to pay the current staff, the $500,000 to offset those expenses. So that's almost $1 million of the $2.5 million we're talking about.
Did you have any of this discussion in your meeting recently?
Not in this detail.
No.
I did bring up that I thought that all the school choice money should be used to offset expenses in the period. You know, the salaries and stuff like that, just as an offset.
And how was that
I
received?
do not think it was received well. What do you think, Bill?
No, not at all. Let's get it 1 to 10.
Yeah, but,
Is that a one?
Yeah, telling somebody how to do their job really pisses them
yeah,
off.
yeah.
check it.
But, so anyways, I want to present this at the select board meeting, so it becomes public knowledge, because and this is my opinion, that the school committee just looks at the money they're getting, and they don't think there's any expense to go along with it, and that's not true at all.
Well, and that brings me back to this whole, and I think it's great. I would love to see, okay, they get $5,000 per student, okay? All right, that's what you bring in. Give me your expenses, you know, as best you can.
Mhm.
And there's fixed costs, they shouldn't even apply to this because these assets have to be there anyway, okay?
Yeah.
So you tell me variable costs compared to the 5,000, what that adds in comparison, and that would be a very good conversation to have with them. Because apparently they have all this residual monies that are saved, which gives them, what, $2 million? How long, what's the time frame on that? Was it $2 million we said or something like that? That's-
School choice?
Yeah, how much?
Balance?
Yeah.
No, yeah.
No, I mean, they have X amount of money in there now, what, $2 million they have?
Well, it was
Is that what you said?
It was 2.6 and then.
2.6.
Gina, I think you need-
And how-
2,368,
And how long did
313.
it take them to accrue that money? Was it,
Over years.
Well,
Yeah.
if they get 650,
Yeah.
60 on average per year,
Right.
then,
4 or 5 years.
yeah.
4 or 5
okay,
years.
right, so their argument could be, well, guess what, you know, if we keep this going the way it is, you know, every year we get X amount of money, that puts more money in their coffers to be spent. I'm being the devil's advocate, frankly, but that's the argument they could make. Hey, you know, we spend this, but we have this, you know, therefore it could be used to, you know.
Offset the budget.
Correct.
Yeah.
Their argument that I've heard from listening to school committee meetings is that this is, they can't count on that money because they vote every year on school choice.
Yeah, the dynamics could change.
That's true,
in the-
that's true.
So,
The
we've
dynamics
had
could
school
change.
choice for how many years?
Well, I think it started in
Maybe in the 90s.
2010, 2011.
So a long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's been a while, yeah.
Still,
Oh,
I
yeah.
understand the argument that, but still,
Well, we had, if I remember correctly, the argument was we had empty seats,
right.
you know, excess capacity.
Yeah,
And instead of the capacity generating no income, we would take in some kids, and it would generate income for the school district. I don't know how or why the money has been sitting there accumulating instead of paying off, you know, spending out what it's supposed to be spent for.
all right.
But,
It is a question.
you know, it's,
They won't.
it's
So what
been a
you
while
said,
since I've been on the school committee, so
so
I
20,
would-
you say in 2010, it goes back to 2010?
Around 2010, yeah.
All right,
I
so-
remember
So,
But-
having the conversation.
But they do have to vote every year, and then the
Yeah,
argument
yeah, to
is
renew.
that because school committee members could change,
Right.
they could all of a
Because I
sudden
remember the
vote
first-
it out.
The first year we said no.
Okay,
We-
I don't remember.
We said no to it.
Yeah.
And it had been like a no for the years before that. And then we were kind of running short on money. And, oh, well, this is a good way to make money for the school district. Well, it's-
Apparently.
You know, we have to pay heat, we have to pay electricity, we have to pay all this stuff anyway. So, you know,
What was the argument originally for voting against it, if you remember?
I think it had something to do with you didn't have say of what students you got. You could get the worst of the worst. You know, the troublemakers, basically, that the other school district didn't want. You could end up with a whole mess of disabled kids and all the expenses that go with that. But I think they had changed the rules or something, which made it a positive. Like we could
Yeah.
we could decline somebody if we didn't want.
Yeah, I don't think they take special needs students from other cities. Because if you go, can you go back to the school choice? And I asked Jim if this was right, and he said, yeah. The in-district, no, right, the in-district cost per pupil.
Yep, that's right.
The out-of-district cost per pupil, which is Dartmouth kids going out of district to be educated under special circumstances,
That's right.
is $48,719.
The schools are extremely expensive.
Yeah.
Transportation to get them to the
Yeah.
school is very expensive.
So we don't have any out-of-district, we don't have kids from other towns in that program. We don't have any kids.
We don't have any Dartmouth kids that are going out to other schools? Is that what you just said?
Yes, we have
No,
special needs.
I think you're talking about, we're not taking in special
Yeah, we're
needs
not,
kids.
yeah, we're not taking in special
The
needs
other
kids.
districts.
Yeah,
We have special needs kids going out, because
Oh,
I see.
what about just students
I see them
in
every
general?
morning when I'm going to work, going down 24, because some of them go to Portsmouth,
Yeah,
schools
sorry.
in Portsmouth, or schools
Yeah,
in Newport, or wherever.
Yeah, if your program doesn't fit the needs of these kids, that's when they can, you know, be.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to find one that does.
Correct.
And you're at their mercy for what you pay.
No, but do we have students in general who are choosing to go out of district? Do we know that number?
Besides vocational kids?
You don't
Yeah,
have
it says the vocational.
vocational kids, that's it.
That's it, just the kids who go to
Well,
New Bedford Voc?
No.
Or Bristol Aggie?
Bristol Aggie too.
Okay.
But-
Maybe not, I don't know. Good question.
But,
I don't know if any,
I think it's only Vulcan,
school choice the other way.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just
yeah,
curious.
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah,
forgot, of course, New Bedford Voc and Bristol Aggie.
yeah. But anyways, so I want to make this presentation. I don't know how you feel comfortable with it, but I want to do it because I just want to get, it's, their opinion is going to be different than ours, but I think it's important that the public understand that there's, there are fixed costs and there are variable costs. And, if they've been doing this since 2019, that means that the extra staff that they have for these extra students has got 13 years' worth of pension and medical, and if they retire in 7 years, we're gonna pay those for the rest of their lives. So there are other expenses that are associated with this. And I would feel comfortable if it was $10,000 per student, but the state decides that. So they decided 20 years ago or a couple of decades ago, and they haven't changed the number. So it's come to a point now where it's clearly not favorable to have student choice. It's costing Dartmouth taxpayers to pay for the education of kids outside the district. So,
I'm just trying to think of how it will be countered.
it'll be counted.
I'm not saying it won't be countered, I'm asking
Yeah, let 'em.
how it will be counted.
Well, who knows, I would say probably because.
If they say empty seats, I'll say, okay, then you're gonna go from, and if the statement is true that the ratio is,
Like 820 kids in the high school.
yeah, I know, well, there's the capacity of this high school physically, right?
Yep,
That's one thing. Then there's a capacity of teaching.
outstaffed, yeah.
Yeah, and that's variable, you know? And, so, anyways, that's.
I'm
that's
just
it.
playing devil's advocate.
No,
I'm
no,
not
no, no,
disagreeing.
no, but they're, I thought I wrote it down here someplace. What did I say? 12 and a half, it goes down to 10.7. So if the statement is true, that.
You're saying the
stu-
ratio
student-
goes
the
to
s-
10.7?
Yeah, yeah, those
I like that
132.
number.
That 100, in other words, if you,
Talking private schools now.
yeah, if you take, if you.
Yeah,
if
that's
you- if
very
you-
truthful.
If you are, if the statement is that you are, the student-teacher relationship is the most important issue on education, then by adding 132 students, you go from 12 and a half to 10.8. You're denying the kids who live in Dartmouth their ratio of 10.8,
No, it's a good fact,
okay? If they're empty seats,
because I know they like their, student-teacher ratio number,
okay?
which, as I said, I still have a hard time understanding what the difference of one makes.
I'm with you, makes none
But
of me.
what do I don't work in the school
I
system,
mean,
obviously.
I can see a difference of 10.
Of
Yes.
course, yes.
But not one, and that's what I'm,
Yeah, I
Struggling
understand.
with.
I know.
I'm
Well-
struggling with that.
And I struggle with the fact that they've accumulated so many dollars that they
Yep.
don't seem willing to spend.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I
And
think
there-
that.
I'm struggling a lot with that.
Yeah. Well, I think using the school choice money and possibly doing this is gonna work for this year, but it ain't gonna work,
It's not going to.
work for
Not
the
going,
future.
not going forward, no.
But applying, if they decide to go with school choice, applying the school choice money will be good for the, going forward,
Of course, also, and everybody knows this, the number of students enrolled in Dartmouth schools has gone down every year. You can just look back, every single year it is less.
Yeah.
So it's not going up,
Well, so,
Kids are going somewhere.
or there's just less in the town.
I think there's less kids in the
There's
school
less
system
kids in the
now,
school.
Phil.
I had a conversation with somebody the other day. So there's that, obviously, that the enrollment in schools is just going down. But the number of seniors in this town is going up. So that is also a reason, personally, that I think we have to look closely at why all of a sudden we should be raising taxes when you look at those numbers and who else will be impacted. Because there's more people in this town than just students.
And the school community, that's exactly what we said at the school committee
'Cause
meeting with them. There's other people in the town that are not part of the school committee, school community, excuse me.
yeah,
Right.
I was told, and I don't have anything in front of me to back it up, but the source was very good. It was from the Council on Aging, that the population of seniors in this town has gone up 9%.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm selling it.
So,
That's
are you gonna
substantial.
talk about that at the meeting?
Happy to.
Okay. Because,
I'll raise my hand for being
From-
part of the seniors then.
Well, I think we all
Yeah.
are.
Kids are moving out and they're not coming back.
yeah,
I
But the
know that.
population in town hasn't, it's pretty flat. If you look at our population in Dartmouth, either, that's also not like, skyrocketing. Families aren't pouring into town.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, there's a couple things to take into
Can't
account
afford
for
Can't
this.
afford the house, you can't.
yeah.
But I'm very much stuck on the money that seems to have been accumulated and not spent between the kindergarten stabilization fund and the school choice funds. And I started to think, and I don't know if I've had this, I might have had this conversation with you, Bob, offline, but we did 2 reserve fund transfers last year.
Yep.
2 reserve fund transfers for the school department. And I'm wondering why,
If they're sitting on that money.
when they had $2 million plus $1,000, why did we do that?
Yeah.
Well, granted, we didn't know at the time,
Yeah, we didn't know.
Well, we
but that
had,
doesn't make it right.
Well, somebody should have said
well,
something.
we had that, that's right, we had that at the spring
Yeah.
town meeting,
Yeah.
where it was presented to us in the 11th hour, another additional $100,000 that they wanted appropriated to their budget, and they still couldn't, to my satisfaction, where that money was gonna go.
And they- and
It was a miscalculation,
Yeah.
and that's how it was presented. It was a
Yeah,
miscalculation.
the 11th hour miscalculation.
And then there was this one was categorized as a miscommunication, the $500,000+ for the roof repair. That's a capital expense. Why was it not out of this?
I really need an explanation about that.
Yeah,
They were both very
So,
last-minute
you
transfers.
finished the high school 20 years ago,
Yeah.
or 25 years ago, whatever it was. Roofs and stuff don't last forever.
No, sir.
How come nothing was planned
I know, it was very poor planning.
or set aside for the day when the roof leaks?
Right.
And you've got to replace it. Oh, now, oh, the roof's leaking and, you know, the cupboard's bare.
yeah.
But Gary, because you understand all these things, is there any reason why those 2 amounts of money from last year could not have come out of their school choice funds?
Yeah, they could have, but I think at the time, as you alluded to, we didn't know that these funds were available.
Oh, no,
There was
that-
Even the kindergarten account, you know,
Oh, right,
remember
the
at town
secret-
meeting,
Yeah, we-
Secret fund.
people had gotten up and said, well, okay, how much is
Well,
the
it was a
kindergarten
secret.
It
account?
wasn't on the warrant.
You can see it the-
Right, but it could have potentially been used as a funding source.
Yeah, yeah.
But-
So these things, you know, the goal, my goal is to let the public know there's more than one side of the story to this situation. That's my goal. When I start, everybody will have an opportunity, because David Tattlebaum's the chairperson, so he decides who talks. You know, my feeling is that we just, if we all agree, that we just don't have enough information, we don't have an opinion on whether, you know, there should be an override, but these are facts that we have found. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
We could take a vote and say, hey, you know, we don't support the going, and it doesn't have to be unanimous, it could be,
Well, it's
I think it's,
challenging, I'm trying to think of the right words, to present some of the facts without sounding like you're voicing an opinion.
well, you can force it. Well, you can
I mean,
force opinion.
it's an opinion, obviously.
Yeah, it's an opinion.
When you say things, as I just did, that
Yeah.
there's a lot of money that's not being spent.
Sure.
There were money transfers made that I still don't understand why this money wasn't
$1 million in this
spent.
account, but we need $500,000 for this.
Yeah, so I think we're doing our job if we present, each person to, presents their opinion, has the opportunity if they want to.
And maybe the setup will be, if it's in a U shape or however they
Yeah.
design it, you go around the room and voice,
Yeah,
and then maybe some questions could be answered too in that kind
Yeah,
of
and
platform.
maybe not to per se opinions, is just to present questions.
More questions than
Not
anything,
more than
yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
Questioning their logic, their rationale for what they're doing, and that's, so it gives a better insight, not only to us, but people in the town that are gonna be watching this on TV, that they should be able to see what's going on, or hear what's going on. And that's what's important, is present facts and questions that we have, and why isn't this being done, and efficiencies and things that could be tightened up.
Yeah, which
that-
gets back to the whole topic that we were talking about at the beginning, not being able to promote it, so.
Right.
You know, you want to get everything factual as you can out in the open.
That's right,
And
Gary.
then have the, like David said as many times, have the residents decide
Exactly.
how they want to approach it.
You know, the biggest thing is put as much facts out there as you possibly can, so people can deliberate, decide what they want to do.
I think when it was presented at the joint meeting, it was just my impression, but it seemed to be presented in a manner that there was absolutely no choice going forward.
As far as an override?
Yeah,
Correct. I don't feel that it was presented in a manner of pros and cons
Well,
personally,
That's what we have to do.
Well,
in judging it from all angles, as in the other people in this town, seniors and stuff. And one other thing, and Gary, I had asked you this information, the towns that were selected as, you know, oh, look what they pay for taxes versus Dartmouth kind of
Comparables.
thing. And they didn't take into, it wasn't taken in account that about half of them had a split tax rate. And to me, that is an impact as well. But it wasn't taken into account that. It was just presented as, you know, our rate is whatever, I might have the numbers wrong, 8% or something, and another town was whatever. But it didn't take into account that they had the businesses paying more in half of those towns, including ours. So what is the impact of a 2.5 override on the small businesses in Dartmouth? It's significant.
Sure is.
Because what is their rate? Is this stuff, you know it, do you
It's
know it?
different.
It's eight, we just set the rates, 18, 17, I believe.
17 something, okay. So,
Yeah.
so the small businesses in town will be paying
more.
above and beyond, you know, that rate now. Because everybody thinks it's Target and Walgreens and Walmart. They don't look at the little restaurant on the corner
Right.
or the bakery.
Or the mom and pop stores, right?
Exactly, so all of a sudden, they have to pay. That wasn't even alluded to in that presentation on the override.
All right, so, you know, as far as my presentation is concerned, I mean, I have some facts in here. You know, what the variable cost is, whether it's 50%, 48%, 52%, whatever is debatable, but it's not 31%, you know, the incremental cost. So, especially since it's been $5,000 for over 20 years. So I want to make this presentation, just.
So you want to make the
guys-
presentation?
I want to make a presentation on this.
Good.
We'll take it there for there.
No, I think it's good information that everybody should hear,
Yep.
Yeah,
because they're not looking at it this way.
yeah,
No, we're not.
yeah,
As I said, it was originally presented in a much different manner.
yeah, yeah.
Now, Bob, did you want me to give this, is this the final presentation, or are you just going to go with it? Do you want me to send that to Sean so that he can at least put it in their packet?
Yeah, the only thing I changed was, at the last minute, I had put in the total expenditures per student from information that Jim had sent me, but he sent me updated information, so now that equals 31%, it's not 32, it's 31. So,
Over here.
yeah, that's 31. So,
Do
yeah.
you have, and I'm not seeing it here, am I? Where you calculated what the student-teacher ratio would be?
I did it on my spreadsheet here. I
Because
probably, let me update that, because I'll update that.
that should be in there.
That should be in
You want
there.
to update this and then send it to me?
Yeah, I'll send it to you. With the teacher to do it, because,
I think he likes to have the packet ready by tomorrow, so I don't know.
okay, I'll send it first thing.
This is just me looking at how this information is being presented, because he's going to have a PowerPoint, isn't he?
I
Obviously.
believe they're going to do.
He's gonna do PowerPoints
This-
with
You have some
bullets.
very impactful statements that just sort of don't stand out on this piece of paper.
Yeah,
If you had a way to
Maybe a
put them.
slide, like a
Yes,
slide.
if you had a way like that ratio and something else that really makes it go, this is the result.
Mm-hmm.
These, you know, pick 3, 5, whatever, boom, boom, boom. That's how people read the information and take
Okay.
it in, because this'll just blend
Yeah, I mean,
into
I
a bunch
did
of
it more-
numbers on a spreadsheet,
I
and no
did- I
one
did-
will
I-
understand it.
I did this, this is an analysis, it's not.
Yeah,
it's
no,
not-
understood.
yeah.
I'm just saying, for
Yeah.
people to really catch it, the ones that are here or watching at home.
I don't know PowerPoint, but I can
Even if it's
do,
one slide, I mean,
I can, I'll try to make it look fancier and just more, like she said, impactful.
No, it'll make a
Like
big
a-
difference if they see like 3 reasons why this is a really awesome
something
thing
like
to do.
a handout or some kind of
Yeah. Well, I don't want to,
handout or
I
something.
want something that's going
Yeah,
to be
on
on
the
the board,
screen.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Okay. Okay, are we done with this for now?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it raises a lot of questions. I don't know if we're.
Yeah, no, it does.
But you know, the thing is, Bob, it's just a presentation too. And you're not gonna have enough time probably to do any differently than this. But again, going back to what I said before about the 5,000, revenue that came in as opposed to what the actual cost would be, if you could somehow formulate that, that would cut to the quick.
I wish I could, but
It's hard, it's too hard,
Yeah.
because there's too many costs, and you'd have to go and research, their expenditures, and if you could allocate a prorate per student, it's costly, but
it's,
this may raise a lot of questions that we can't answer, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
the one thing I know as far as coming up with a variable number, if I was on a school committee, when school choice came up, that'd be the first thing. That's only because I've lived in that world in my
Yeah.
corporate life.
That's- that's
We
what
always
me
talk
too.
about variable costs versus
Yeah.
fixed costs. And, so,
Do they cap the number of school choice students?
yes,
Is that a
Yeah, they
number
basic-
every year? That's the number?
yes, yeah, it's going up every year for the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Jim sent me that.
That they only have, okay.
One other thing before we move on to this letter, I did ask Jim today, and he may have answered me already, but I asked, how much money did they spend last year prepaying this year's expense? They prepaid, in other words, last year, at the end of last year in June, they prepaid expenses for this year. Yeah, they did. In other words, they had money left over, and they prepaid expenses, so it went to last year's. So.
How much was that?
I'm gonna find out.
I'd love to know that
Yeah,
number.
yeah.
So you're saying that was extra money besides the extra money that were?
They prepaid, I know, I listened to the school committee meeting, they prepaid stuff.
I
In
mean,
in a- if
Was it a
in
little
in
amount or
Yeah, I don't know.
oh,
I don't know. I
yeah.
just know he said he was gonna prepay.
$1,000 versus, 500,000?
Yeah, I don't know what the number is, but at least we'll
I
have,
think it
the-
was 500,000.
Well, wouldn't it be good to know?
yeah,
Well,
but,
Sure would be.
yeah. So,
What it was spent on,
Yes.
it was said in the school
Make
committee
sure it
meeting.
didn't
It was said,
pay for it again.
yeah, it was said in the school committee meeting,
Which one?
And-
Because I've been listening to the last couple. I must have missed it.
well before,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Before the last couple.
Yeah, it must have been in May or June. And they said, and the school committee had to approve it. And I think that the issue was if they prepaid it, they would save some money because it be more expensive than the next year. But that's the number I think we should have, so we'll.
Did
we'll
they
do-
mention why it was left over?
No.
Okay, just, or from what?
No, they just said, we want to prepay some of the expenses.
It's just a curious thing now, because talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
people
the
who are
corporate-
asking for $2
and the
million.
corporate- If
Yeah,
it was a
sure.
corporate, I mean, the rules for towns and things is a little different. It's more on a cash basis what they pay. In the corporate world, that wouldn't be an expense of that year. It would be a prepaid, it'd show up on the balance sheet as a prepaid expense,
Yeah.
but they expense it. All right, so, ready to talk about this letter?
Guess so. Oh, there it is.
All right, so, apparently this is written by John?
Yes,
Souza?
John wrote it.
Okay. And I'll just read it out loud.
Yeah, okay.
For the audience. Dear Mr. Tattlebaum, Select Board, I am writing on behalf of the Dartmouth Finance Committee in regard to the former police station located at Russell Mills Road. After meeting with a representative from the Historical Commission at our meeting on December 14th, the finance committee voted to request the select board delay the demolition of this town asset, so that could be a thorough investigation into potential repurchase of the building. Cost not exceeding $46,500.
Which, okay,
Which was,
I thought it was 46,000. Is that in the minutes?
it is. I thought it was 46 myself.
Yeah, I don't think it was 46,500. That was the only thing that I thought about on this was,
Is it in the, let's look.
46,000.
46,000?
yeah.
Okay, so that's just,
So that's okay.
Mistake.
Oh, we can fix that, that's not.
okay, but, you know.
So 46, so that should be, say 46. The finance committee believes a study for potential uses and costs to preserve the building would be worthwhile investment to inform the town's decision concerning the building's future. Terry had suggested that she would like it to say that voted 4-1.
Technically, the vote was 5-1
5-1?
in the minutes.
Okay, 5-1? Okay. Is that,
Want to add that in here?
Why-
Even though
uh,
I said it was 5-1.
Yeah, I'll go with my vote from before.
okay, so it's, I wasn't here.
There were 6 people in the meeting.
Yeah.
5-1, okay. So, all right, so 5-1.
Want to add that in?
Well,
It's not necessary to add that, in. Why?
Well,
because
well,
Terry
good.
wants to make sure that she wasn't in favor
That's
of
fine,
it.
that's, I
And-
mean, I
and to be
understand. I
honest-
don't think we should be listing people's names,
No,
you
no,
know.
of course not.
If
But
you could,
that's-
if you
that's
could
fair.
put, if you go up to December 14th, the finance committee voted,
Right, voted 5-1.
voted right there, go down, go down. Go down right there, voted 5-1 to request a select board delay the demolition of the thing. And that way, that satisfies.
Yeah, that's fine,
Okay.
that's a fair request. of
And if you
course.
go down more, I'm not in favor of this letter, so I don't want my name there. Even though I wasn't here to vote, I would put Dartmouth Finance Committee, just Dartmouth Finance Committee.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to the, on YouTube, I listened to the arguments you made, and as far as I'm concerned, you know, this thing's been going on for a long time. All of a sudden, it stopped. They had a delay. The historical thing has the right to delay it for 6 months. But, you know, it's the select board's decision. It's not the historical department's decision. And the other thing, I understand that technically it's a historical building, but as soon as they put that new facade up, to me, it ceased being a historical building. Just too much time has eroded, and if they want to demolish it, then I'm all for demolishing. I'm not for selling the property, but unless nobody's come forward, if nobody wants to, if a developer wanted to come and say, hey, I want to do housing there, then.
They
can sell
haven't
it.
looked into that yet.
Well, it's not the historical department's job to.
It's not, I agree, but I'm just saying that, we're not,
Yeah.
it's not at that point.
But I mean, you know, historically, I mean, I think that there's been plenty of time to do this, and I understand there's a timestamp issue, but it doesn't, to me, that doesn't matter, you know. The 6 months started, then in mid-January, the select board has the right to do the demolition, and it's gonna cost them a little bit more money, but that it is what it is. And, you know, they can use the land for something else, and build something else, you know. Like I said, I don't feel it's a historical building at all. Al Capone wasn't arrested there, so there's no, you know, there's no thing. And when I was, and this was before I was on the finance committee, when they had that problem with the Legionnaires, I was amazed that they built a new police station. I was kind of amazed. I thought they should be able to solve that issue. I guess apparently technology, they can do that. You know, just take all the pipes out. And I actually asked the lawyer, Anthony
Savastano.
Salvestano, I said, isn't the architect responsible? Because one of the big problems is you put a outside wall up against the old outside wall, and I would think that the architect had some liability there, because that's apparently what caused the issue. But anyways, that's my, I couldn't vote, so that's not it, but I'm happy to have this go in, because, you know, I was glad we gave her the opportunity, but I just didn't, when I watched it on YouTube, I didn't see anything that changed my mind.
So do you want me to forward this to somebody? Or do you want me,
Yeah, I mean, I don't,
I can forward it to
I
Sean,
mean-
maybe?
what's that?
Want me to forward it to Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I wish we could vote on it, but that's, I don't think, I think that we made corrections. I don't think there's anything that anybody can object to. I mean, the 46,000 we fixed, the 5-to-1 we fixed.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, you already voted, you voted the last meeting.
We
It was
did.
voted
Well,
and
you-
discussed at the
We
last meeting.
voted, as long as they,
You
as long as they
voted.
added the caveat about the $46,000.
We made a correction, that's all.
Right, but that was voted on the last meeting, that was the,
Yeah.
what I was objecting to, because it was like an open check. I said, well, you should have it, you know, limited, so people would say, okay, well, we're only gonna spend this much tops, and that's what we voted on.
Well, that was based on the study cost.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
There wasn't a number pulled out of the air.
But I think the proper procedure should be, because you voted to have John write a letter, but it still had to be approved by us.
Yeah,
No, no,
Well,
actually, we voted
to
to
have him.
support this
Letter.
the letter.
This
right,
study.
The letter.
I thought you voted
We
to
voted to
have
support
John
this
do
study.
it.
No, we,
Your vote was to support the.
right, we had John do this
Via
letter
letter, via
because
letter.
he had made the motion.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the only
I
reason
saw- I
John
saw-
wrote the
I
letter.
saw that. I
Right,
saw-
because when he
Yeah,
said it, I
don't think you
said,
need- I don't think you need another vote.
no, I don't
All
think we
right,
need
all
another
right.
vote
No, we
either. All we did was
No, we
make a
didn't.
minor correction on the dollar
All right.
figure.
All right, then
So
that's,
you want me to-
The
I can forward it to
concept was
Sean.
voted on.
yeah. Is this gonna be on the select board thing?
Well, he sets the agenda, so when they set the agenda, they'll decide.
Because
what-
if they're,
I don't think, it won't be on for Monday.
Won't be on the
Well,
January
this
8th.
letter?
Oh, no.
No,
No, the letter's not gonna be
yeah,
on
no,
the
I'm just
agenda.
saying, they have to acknowledge the letter, I think, right?
well, they can acknowledge the receipt
Well,
of it, yeah.
Sean will probably.
It's
let
going,
them know when
right,
they
the
receive letter.
discussion with Susan and her gang is going to be on another agenda because they already asked to be on one. I don't think it's necessarily
Yeah.
on Monday's agenda,
No,
but it's
not
probably
that-
on the
not that I'm
one,
aware of.
it's probably
Yeah.
on the next
Another-
one
next-
after
yes.
that,
And that
because
ra-
they have a deadline.
Yeah.
And that raises a question about this other letter that we have here from Judith Jenkins. I mean, she's advocating that, you know, we should just get an appraiser and forego the study. And I guess that should be discussed at another time.
Well, that's
too.
that's for the select board, really.
Yeah, I think, I think you're gonna, I
Wound
think
up
Written
on
to
our
me.
desk,
It was
so.
written to me, so.
you might get a few letters because, like I said, there was a correspondence that went out, I think, so maybe this might not be the only letter. I just forwarded it to Bob because it came and addressed to him.
Oh, okay.
Well, I appreciate that, because last time there was an issue, I got 175 emails on a Saturday morning from members of the school community. Okay. Great.
What else we got?
Minutes, we don't have enough.
Yeah, we don't have
No,
enough. Is
we
there
have to
any
forego that.
liaison reports, or, I don't have anything?
No,
Anybody?
I don't have any.
Okay. All right, so, somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, so Bill made the motion to adjourn. Okay, Phil seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.